Everyone, Alex Terrace back with a new infrared sauna review for Sweatbox Shop, or Sweatbox Sauna is the brand name. So I am a dealer broker for this industry with I think upwards of 10 different sauna companies. So I'm one of the few people in the industry who basically can kind of give you some unbiased guidance. So you're welcome to just direct email me. That's the fastest way to get in touch. Look below in the description, below in the video, and you can contact me anytime, 7 days a week. So I decided to do a review on this just because in my YouTube platform and other social media places, you may have gotten advertisements for Sweatbox, because they're just doing a lot of marketing basically right now. Newer company to the sauna industry, very new. And just from that standpoint, I was like, there's probably a lot of people wondering, right? Wondering, should I buy this? Is this a good infrared sauna? So that's what we're just going to talk about in this video real quickly. Anyway, so let's dive in. It is a company based in Oregon. The construction quality is really good. Granted, it's a very simple thing to construct, but it is actually good quality as far as the build. So there's that. The price point is it's a little high, I think, based on kind of like the simplicity of what they actually have going on in this thing. Granted, they are a newer company, right? So they're going to try to vie for a little bit more market share because they have to spend a lot on marketing. So part of this price right here is just being a newer company and you helping with their marketing budget, long story short. So I don't know how you feel about that. And then if you go in the About Us section, and we'll be getting, of course, into the technicalities of this infrared sauna in a second. But anyways, if you read here about the how they kind of got started and things like that, basically the synopsis of the story is that, I guess, kind of like the value proposition, so to say, right? Of, hey, why us, right? Why buy us? Is really actually more of a convenience and or like size. So basically not having an infrared sauna that's too big, having something that's smaller and more convenient to put into a space. That's basically their value proposition. Hold on one second. Pardon that interruption, everybody. Just got a little call at the wrong time here. So anyway, so yeah, that's their value proposition. It's just, hey, it's a sauna, but it's smaller, basically. That's what it appears to be. Because it's not like they're, and they are doing one other unique thing, which we will go over here in a second. So the size, it is smaller. Now that said, in terms of that value proposition, let's just chat about that real quick. It is true that when you look at all the different traditional saunas and infrared saunas, there's really not many options that are outside of the normal common 1 person, 2 person, 3 person, right, boxes, squares or rectangles, okay, and that are usually taller, of course. They're usually like 72 inches, 74 inches in height, okay. That's definitely true. There's not a lot of smaller options, except if you really want something that's also takes up actually even a smaller footprint than that. There is a Canadian company that makes like a mini sauna. Actually, you can pull it up on my YouTube channel. If you just go to my actual video channel, look under videos, and then just do a search and just type in mini infrared sauna. You know what? I'll just put a link to it in the description too. If you are looking for something smaller, there is a company that does a great mini infrared sauna that actually, footprint-wise, in terms of the actual floor space, it's actually less than this sauna. So that's what a lot of people are looking for, right? Just think about this. Just think about the common logic of this. Yes, this is a smaller sauna, but it's obvious here that the main dimensions they've reduced is the height. But that doesn't actually make a whole lot of logical sense, right? Because when we talk about, hey, floor space, right? I want to take up less floor space. We're thinking about this, right? The depth, the width, mainly, right? And that's the actual square inches, right, on the floor. Okay, well, if you want less square inches, you would basically, there is a couple other options that go a little bit higher vertically, which is more functional, which we will go over in a second here, ergonomically, and it takes up less space, okay? So there is actually a company that does like a normal cabin infrared saunas, wood cabin, okay, and takes up less space. So just go below in the description, you'll see it. If you have any questions on that, email me anytime. And then as far as outside of that particular brand, with that model option, what else do we got? We got portable infrared saunas, which therapeutically in some ways are better technically. And that said, there's a lot of crappy, poor quality infrared portable saunas that I wouldn't necessarily recommend. But I absolutely do have a couple good suggestions that are the best in class. Totally non-toxic materials, and basically warm up faster, will raise your core body temperature more efficiently, and come in at a great price point that is much less than this price point. Okay, and take up even less floor space, and you can pack them up and move them wherever you want anytime. So I put 2 links below in the description, and I do have videos on those as well on my YouTube channel. So again, you can do better therapeutically with a couple really good portables and do better on your price than this one. Okay, so basically what we're getting to is their main value proposition of taking up less floor space. That first kind of main point, selling point at that price point, not really true. It's not, I don't really see that. You know, I've just given you some better options. Okay, so let's look inside, shall we? Okay, so you know, definitely it's cool looking, right? You know what I mean? Like if you had this at a commercial location, it's interesting, right? It definitely is a unique kind of design. Maybe, actually kind of looks like a big box. I mean, come to think of it actually. But anyways, all right. So here we are working outside of it. Let's go inside. Okay. So let's first take a look at this picture here. I think it's a good picture because we get to see kind of all the different emitters or heaters in here. All right. So the way they've set this up is they have those near infrared heat bulbs in the back, and then we got your traditional carbon panels or carbon emitters on the sidewalls. So I've critiqued the other couple popular infrared saunas on the market that just rely on those near infrared heat bulbs in the back. Sauna Space is one, and just off the top of my head, I'm totally forgetting the other major company, and you might have come across it, but it's basically they got these near infrared bulbs in these other ones, and it's like a tent, basically a canvas tent surrounds you, and then you're on a stool, and you basically turn yourself around like a rotisserie chicken, literally. And I have a lot of critiques on that company. Makes a lot of disproving claims, unproven claims about their near infrared bulbs, and I do talk about that in some videos on my channel. Okay, so I'm just pointing out here that they have taken what that other company has done a lot of sales with and grown their company around that tent with the near infrared bulbs, and they said, you know what, let's throw it in here, and then we're just going to also throw in, you know, some of the most popular infrared panels, which are carbon infrared emitters that have been made for decades. Okay, most of them are imported from China, where they have been working on carbon emitter panels for like decades. Anyways, so let's combine the two, right? So 80% of infrared saunas are basically using these panels. If you don't know that, it could even be over 80% of all the different brands. So they said, let's take the, quote, best of both worlds. Although I do think that, yes, the infrared spectrum that comes off carbon panels is definitely really, really good. I wouldn't say this is the best of the other world, near infrared bulbs. I'm not a fan of them at all. For having them in a infrared sauna experience. Okay, and I'm just going to briefly sum up those reasons here because it actually does get very technical when you are comparing the infrared spectrum and what has been proven for a very long time now as far as what's the absorbable or optimal windows or peak wavelengths coming from an infrared emitter. Okay, so the issue with these near infrared bulbs is, first off, if you actually look at their wavelength distribution from the actual manufacturers that make these bulbs, they are actually putting out a good amount of mid-range infrared. So you have both IRA and IRB. So the fact that they call them near infrared bulbs, for example, is really more of like a marketing keyword play, because near infrared wavelengths have been studied. There's about over 5,000 studies in the photobiomodulation therapy industry, but the application of those near infrared wavelengths, they're only specific wavelengths. Okay, so no other spectra mixed in usually, and they're administered by LEDs or traditionally lasers. Okay, so they basically, these companies that have incorporated these near infrared heat lamp bulbs make a lot of health claims that come from photobiomodulation research, but they're doing it with completely different infrared or sources, which again are LEDs and lasers, usually one single wavelength. or in some cases multiple wavelengths if it's an LED, but those are non-thermal near infrared light wavelengths, okay? And that's a very different effect than what these heat lamp bulbs put out. So anytime you see a sauna company that's claiming certain health benefits from these bulbs, just realize there is not really any research behind that. And usually the type of health benefits they claim from them is actually coming from a completely different research field with very different devices. So LEDs and lasers, again, perform completely differently metabolically than these bulbs. At least we have the research on that. That's what it's showing. As far as LEDs and lasers, we don't really, again, have anything on these. We do have some research on these heat lamp bulbs, and some of that research is not very positive. There could be some potential skin damage and organ and tissue damage issues if you're too close. So like right here, at that distance, her back is away from it. Probably is safe. It depends on the wattage of the bulb, which I forget. But I wouldn't necessarily be any closer than that because the spectra that comes off of these has the capability of being more transmissive, is the actual physics term. And so this is not coming from me. This is coming from the factories that make these heaters, heat lamp bulbs, and as well as a variety of other types of heaters for other industrial applications. And they, have specific warnings and guidance about not really recommending these types of bulbs for heating the human body. Okay, that's coming from the factories. And that the heater companies that produce these and others, you can look at many different heater manufacturers, and usually they're guiding people more towards these types of technologies, carbon emitters, as basically perfect or more ideal wavelengths that have the types of peak wavelengths in the upper range, longer wavelengths that is not going to damage the body in any way. This is very unlikely. And also, more importantly, it absorbs and converts that energy into cells and the water in and around tissues, and actually even interacts with the hemoglobin a little bit, and absorbs again and converts much better than the spectra that's put out by these heat lamp bulbs. So again, the range that these put out just pass, yes, deeper into the body, but the body has defense mechanisms to a lot of the range that these put out, has defense mechanisms that were developed to protect itself from sunlight. So some of these sauna companies will say like, oh, we have a range here of the heat lamp bulbs that are most similar to the sun. Right. Well, some of those infrared rays coming from the sun are actually more damaging potentially, and the body tries to reject, reflect, has a lot of different defense mechanisms. It doesn't want to absorb basically those certain rays because there again can be metabolic disturbances with them. Okay, so so these bulbs basically put out a lot of that. The spectra here that's coming out of the carbons, which again you find also in the sun, that one the body very happily, easily absorbs and can handle by basically sweating and releasing that energy and being able to actually use that energy metabolically in ways that benefit you. I would just stay away from these, essentially. So for that reason, I would never recommend investing in the sauna or other saunas that use these heat lamp bulbs. And the last thing I'll say about those bulbs is, I'm scrolling down here, part of their marketing, here we go. Part of their marketing that's misleading, that actually Sauna Space and these other companies that use these bulbs primarily started with very misleading claims and education, is first off they'll refer to them as 4 infrared red light bulbs. And so there is a red lensing or glare, a coat inside the glass. You can't tell from the video, but when these turned off, you'll see like red on the edge. Running infrared, behind a red glass, basically a red stained glass, to put it simply. When that shines through, that infrared shining through that red, that is not the same, to keep it very simple, on a physics level and biophysics level, that is not the same thing as administering red light, like photobiomodulation, red light therapy, like a specific red wavelength, like 630 nanometer from a laser or an LED. That's not the same thing, therapeutically and functionally. So, but they say that especially this other company, because the red light therapy is a booming industry, selling a variety of different products out there. So they hope that people like see that and they're like, oh, if I get the sauna, I'm also going to get the benefits of red light therapy. And that is not the case. So don't think that. And this company would never be able to back up any sort of claims like that either way. And there's been other videos and other websites, and not just myself, where we actually break down that even if we can measure that red, let's just say, coming through, and let's say like, okay, there is some red wavelengths. The other main issue is the inverse square law. So, but where you position yourself and you sit in front of these, basically, even at that distance, the actual red shining on your body is of too little intensity, basically. So to actually get systemic benefits with red light, either localized or whatever, you have to have a certain amount of joules per minute or joules per second, like a certain amount of dosage in a certain amount of time. And so at the distance you're receiving, and there's ways to calculate this, you're not getting enough of that dosage, which is basically why, if you're after red light therapy, my favorite is using really high intensity red light LED pads where you can put them directly on top of the body. And so that ensures depth of penetration, which is part of the therapeutic efficacy depending on what you're trying to treat, and then also just ensures that you don't have any loss of deliverable optical power getting into the body. Okay, so really it's the LED pads that are the best, even better than the infrared panels that are made out of LEDs, which again, you're at a distance from. It gets really, really complex. There's been all kinds of attempts to kind of calculate, how much are you actually getting when you're at this distance with LEDs. It's very, very complicated to calculate that for many reasons. So that's why I say, let's just forget about all the hypothesis and the theory and the math and just go with, pads and put it directly on the body. So if you need any guidance on like the best pads, you can reach out to me with that. So no, you're not really going to get, any kind of adequate dosage of red light from these to meet some of the dosing guidelines for certain health benefits. You really have to pursue separate standalone red light therapy that are non-thermal as well, not heat related. So also when you get a lot of infrared and you raise your body temperature more and more and more, that actually reduces your body's ability to absorb certain infrared wavelengths, and it also reduces the efficacy of red light actually. And that's a little more complicated to explain. So it's not really the best combination of having red with raising your core body temperature basically and getting a lot of infrared. Moving on here, as far as the infrared panels here, they're fine. I have no critique on these. Carbon infrared panels are great. They've always been great. They put out a great spectrum of infrared. They're actually fairly full spectrum actually when you look at the wavelength distribution reports from the factories that produce these. But here's the main critique, and let's see if we can find another photo. No, okay. Let me scroll back up here because here, let's take a look at that here. Okay, how about this? All right. So when you look at this, it becomes immediately obvious that if you're not stretching, or you're not basically like in a meditative mode, right, with absolutely no support back here, right, and your core strength is also really not good, and you don't mind sitting like this on a wood floor, for most people, and especially the type of people that usually want to get infrared saunas, it's going to be extremely uncomfortable. Okay, so there's just no way to actually relax in this thing. Now, you could lay down, right, and then you could put your feet up, and that's definitely obviously going to be a lot more comfortable. But if you laid down in this like this, you see the height of the panels and everything around there, you won't be getting as much of those infrared rays penetrating directly into your core body. All right, so laying down is not really ideal. If you lay down, it's going to be basically more of like a traditional sauna effect, where basically you're just in a hot room and hot ambient cabin temperature. Okay, so what would be the optimal way for her to get the most infrared benefits from the best emitters would be if she leaned up against the sidewall here. And obviously they're a little high up. It'd be nice if they were a little bit lower on the body. But basically if she leaned up against this, that would be the best way to use this particular sauna. But again, this whole sauna is like really not designed for that. What was designed for that is just your normal infrared sauna brands, where you have a bench and you have all these large carbon emitters in your backside and along your sides. and sometimes even in your front, and you get a lot of infrared rays going directly into your body. So basically just like your regular old carbon infrared sauna, right? That would be better designed to get the maximum exposure. But the way they set this sauna up, they're basically saying, we want the largest surface area of your body, which is your back and your front, right? But mainly your back here in this picture. Mainly your back is going to get most of the infrared coming from these heat lamp bulbs, which again is not, they're really not ideal emitters, because your body generally doesn't want to absorb these as much, that type of spectra, versus the peak wavelengths that come off of the carbon emitters, okay? So ideally, therapeutically, it would have been better to actually have a large carbon emitter on the back wall here, okay? And that would go low to the ground, that she could have leaned up against, like within 1 inch of her body and directly. That would have given her a huge amount of really absorbable infrared. So it would have been better to have that, and then maybe put the bulbs like in the ceiling, basically shining down, or maybe like on the sides, angled, like on the sides. Like that's probably how I would have done it if I was required to use these heat lamp bulbs, long story short. But part of the reason, maybe they don't want to put these on the ceiling is, depending on that ceiling height, the rays that are coming off those heat lamp bulbs could potentially be damaging to the eyes, and actually so there is some risks with those when it comes to eye damage. So anything else to mention in here? The only other value proposition that they talk about that's like supposed to be a big selling point is that it gets up to 150 degrees. So they're kind of like really proud of that fact, and they mention it repeatedly. It gets up to 150, which is more than your average infrared sauna, which gets to 140 degrees. So first off, if you've never used an infrared sauna, if you're sitting in 140 and 150, most people within 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, okay, usually within that range, they're already feeling like they want to get out. In other words, their body's already getting a lot of infrared energy, and their core to body temperature, and person's already thinking about getting out. They're like, okay, I'm feeling pretty satisfied with the amount of infrared that I get here, even at 130 or 140 degrees, okay? So to say like, hey, 150 is a big selling point, for the majority of people that invest in infrared saunas, that's not really super useful or like a big selling point. For the type of person that might be more intrigued about this would be the individual that's already like one of those people that works out a lot and or just loves traditional saunas that get to like 190 degrees cabin temp or 200 degrees. They might be, slightly happier in a more intense degree. But if that's the case, one of the top infrared sauna companies in the world makes a sauna model, an infrared sauna model, that gets to 165 degrees. So, for that type of individual, there is something better. So if that's like a selling point for you, and you're like, oh, I want something slightly more intense. Okay, well, there is, from a great company that's been around a long, long time, they can actually back their warranty because they've been around for a while, right? They make one that's 165 and actually has some adjustable aspects to it. So that's the other thing I just didn't mention before. It's a very new company, this company, Saunabox or whatever, Sweatbox. So, if you're looking at longer warranty terms, I've been in this industry 15 years. At least on average, every 4 to 7 years or whatever it is, statistically, about 50 to 60%, or it depends on where we're talking about, go out of business. In other words, a lot of sauna companies that are small try to compete, and they will go out of business within that time frame, 4 to 7 years. So originally, that's why a lot of times you would see new sauna companies with warranties that were around 4 to 7 years, or like up to 5 years, because they knew competitively that they just might go out of business in 5 years. There's a high chance, and then they wouldn't have to worry, basically. So, if you're going to invest a lot of money, and this is a fair amount of money, right, in a sauna company, you might as well have one that's been around for a while, right? So if they say it's a 10-year warranty or some lifetime warranty, if it's been a company that's been around for a while, chances are, you're probably going to be able to have that full backing of the term of your warranty, right? So that's just another thing to consider. So again, here we go, the red light heat bulbs. They're just basically trying to frame it differently to appear different, and than normally calling them near infrared bulbs, and make this really complicated. But so kind of uncomfortable, basically. You know, you got to be comfortable with just like stretching in here and or like meditating. So if you're not somebody that can just meditate, right, in a lotus pose or crossing your legs, you know, or something like that, you're going to get really uncomfortable in this sauna, and then your musculoskeletal system is going to be kind of stressed while you're in there. And for many people, sometimes they're after getting more of a relief with their musculoskeletal system, so you don't necessarily want to put on more strain or stress. So I would just go with a regular infrared design. That would be much better. I would avoid these bulbs if I were you. Safety features. Most good infrared saunas have safety features already built in, so they're just saying that here just to like try to, you know, sound like they're doing something unique. But it's not unique in the infrared sauna industry, just so you know. Everybody also obviously has a control panel. There's nothing unique there, okay? Most saunas you can actually set up in 45 minutes. What takes you longer is usually unpacking most infrared saunas, but for the most part, they're all very easy to install. So I just want to scroll back here and see if there's anything else that we missed that might be important. Well, I think that's about it. So yeah, I wouldn't necessarily recommend the brand per se. I think based on probably most people's goals, you could do better either price-wise or comfort-wise or even therapeutic efficacy-wise. And again, I would have probably other brand recommendations, usually based on most people's goals and interests in pursuing an infrared sauna. So if you need some of that guidance, just, you know, reach out to me. And I could advise you as well on if you do want to do like red light therapy, because the way that they present it here is very misleading. Infrared and red light therapy. It's really just infrared therapy, okay? But if you do want to actually get red light therapy, I have also been in that category a long, long time, and I've looked at all the different red light types of devices, you know, from super cheap ones up to, you know, $100,000, depending on the type of equipment. So anyways, my email below is in the description, and thanks for watching.